And welcome to the Intro to Web Design class. My name is John. I'm an employee here in the technology department at the Santa Clara City Library, and today I'm going to be showing you a couple of different services that you can use to design a website on your own without needing to know anything about coding. This is going to be a 1 hour program, and I'm going to be going over, like I said, a couple of different services, showing you how you can use them, the features they offer, and the kinds of websites they're best suited to designing. If you have any questions, though, because I'm sure I'm not going to be able to cover everything these sites can do, feel free to use the question and answer feature. So that's the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. If at any point during the class you have a question, you can type it in there, and then we'll stop at various points throughout the class to answer them. Okay. If we do run out of time, though, we have a technology center here in the Santa Clara City Library in the Central Park branch. And anytime the library is open, there's going to be somebody there who can help you out. So just come in, and any of your questions that you have, we can help you out one-on-one. And in case you miss anything, don't worry about that either. This class is going to be recorded, and then within a couple of days, we'll get that uploaded to our YouTube channel, and you'll get an email notification when that happens to link you to this recording. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into the first service that we're going to cover today. That is going to be Carrd.co. That's card with 2 R's. You can see it up in the top here. You can just do a Google search for Carrd with 2 R's, and I'm sure you'll find it as the first result. After you open it up and you make an account, you'll find yourself on a screen like this. And we don't have any sites yet, but to create a new site, we'll just click on this. It's their logo up in the top left. And it takes us to this screen where we can choose a starting point. So for all of these sites, you'll see that instead of starting with a completely blank screen, they're going to have a set of templates that you can choose from. And that just gives you something to start with to design and lay out your website. So Carrd has many different kinds of templates for all different sorts of sites you might want to make. And they're organized by categories up at the top, so like profile pages or like a landing page. But today I'm going to show you how to make a portfolio site. So I'm going to choose this category here, and then we can just scroll through and find one of these templates we like. Looking through this, I think this one in the top left is good. So we'll just hover over it and click select. And once we do that, it'll take us right into this template. And here we see that it is giving us a little bit of an overview of what the different buttons we have, but it's pretty simple. You have a plus to add a new element. We have undo and redo. This save button is what we're going to use at the end to publish, but we can just press OK, got it for now, and I'll show you the things that you'll need to do to add elements, delete them, edit them, and make this site your own. So the first thing you'll see is as we move our mouse around, different elements are being highlighted. And you can see this one is text here, more text. This one says it's a button. And you all know how these work. But to edit them so that way it's not this placeholder information, we'll just click and it opens this panel on the side. So we can highlight this and type in what, in this case, the title of our website is. And we see that just gets updated as soon as we type it. Again, here we have a description, so you can click on here and then just delete this and replace that with whatever description you like. So, that could be some information about yourself or, whatever this page is that you're designing. And you would just go through, you scroll through this template and you see how there's a few different sections. You would just go and replace all of this placeholder information with the actual information that you want to put on your website. You see, this one's a pretty simple template, just with 3 main sections here. But, let's say you don't have that much information that you want to put on your site. 3 sections is maybe a bit too much to fill, and you just want it to be super basic. You don't need to have all of this here. We can just delete it if we want. So you'll notice that instead of highlighting just one of these single text elements or just this button down here, if we move the mouse over to the side, we have this container element, which encloses all of these. If we click while that container element is highlighted, we get some different options here. But in order to delete this, in case we don't want this section, we'll just come down to the trash can icon and click on delete this element. And now, because this element has other stuff inside of it, Card is just going to make sure that we do actually want to delete that. So we don't want to preserve these contents. We don't want to delete them too. So we're just going to press no. And now we see that middle section that we didn't want to fill out is now deleted. Now we have a gallery section here. That's what this gray box is. It wants us to put some images there. But since we don't have a section in the middle anymore, we can delete one of those as well. So I'll just click here, and then in the sidebar, we will click on the delete. And now we see that the template only has the 2 sections, and we don't have to deal with that third one. But of course, if you can delete elements, you can also add elements. That's going to be, like we said earlier, it's this plus button. You'll just click on there, and you see now it gives us a couple different options of elements that we can add. So we have, pretty basic ones. We have texts, we have lists, we have images. There's other ones where if you want to put, a video or a link, some dividers just to section it out, all pretty self-explanatory. And when you're designing your own website, you can play around with these and see what they do, see what you like, see what you don't. But for this example, I'm just going to show you how we can add an image. So I'll click on image here. And one thing you'll notice is that it dumps the image all the way at the bottom of this web page here. This is it down here, but we were way up here. And if we wanted it up here, it's no problem. What we'll do is we'll just come down to the image and we're going to click and drag. And then this just does drag and drop to rearrange the elements wherever you want. And you notice that there's a little blue line, and that's going to show you where the element will drop. So if I want it just below this paragraph here, drop it there, and now we have our image. But of course, we haven't actually selected an image yet. So if we click on it again, you notice there's a big upload button here. After we select the image tab, we can click on this upload button. And then from here, we can just choose a picture to upload. After we choose a picture, it'll take us into a cropping menu. So we can just crop it however we want. And then when we're ready, we click accept in the corner. And now we have this image in the web page as well. So you can go through adding elements as you want. If you add text, it'll function just like these text elements that we saw before. You can add lists, which function as you would expect as well. And you can go through and do all of that. And what we see below here, we have a button element. And right now, the template itself doesn't provide any functionality for the button. So, if we weren't going to touch anything else, and if we were to publish the site as is, this button wouldn't actually function and do anything. But of course, we want the button to go somewhere, maybe to a different web page. So we can set that up by clicking on it. And then again, in this side panel, we're going to open this drop down for the button. And we have a few different options for it. First thing is we can assign some text to the button. So in this case, I'll just say that this button is a library link. And as an example URL in the URL field here, I'm just going to type in sclibrary.org. But of course, if this were your own website, you might want to put the URL to a different website or to maybe one of your social media accounts, say you have like an Instagram or a YouTube account, something like that. You can put that URL here, and then that will take your users to that website when they click on the button. And then there are some other options for styling and such, but this is optional. And, if we like the design so far, we don't need to touch any of those. We'll just click on done, and we see that the button's been uploaded. And then after we publish this site, I'll show you that the link works just as you would expect. Okay, so as we go through, if I was actually going to publish this site for myself, I would go through and I would fill out this placeholder information. And then these icons at the bottom for different social medias, I would click on them. And just like I showed you with the button, we would set the URL to whatever social medias they were, or you could just delete them if you wanted. So we see a bunch of icons here. You can just come down here and then use the trash can to delete them if, say, you don't have a Twitter account, for example. And then after you've gone through and you've filled out all of your information and all of the different sections of the web page, we'll click on the Publish button. And actually, there's this one gallery section here. So this template has space for images, and you can either delete this if you don't want images, or in this case, let's say I do want some images. It has spots for two of them. So we'll open up the drop down and I'll just select two images right here. Something like that. And then we'll do the same for the second one. Go. And we see, you can go through, and this one didn't crop very well. So if you wanted, you could edit it, change it however you want. Um, but I'll just leave it for now because this is just an example. And then now that we've filled out everything on the website, we'll click on this save button to publish the site. And when we get here, there are a couple of different things that we have to do. We have to set a title for our website. So that's what's going to show up when your user visits the site in this tab at the top. So title can just be, we call it web design demo. And the description is the same idea. So, in your own website, you want this to be a little bit more descriptive, but I'll just keep it this simple for now. And then here we have two different options we can choose from. In order to publish your site, you can choose this first one, and that's going to publish your website underneath a subdomain of card.co. So what that means is if we wanted to go under SC Library Demo, in order to visit your website, users would go to sclibrarydemo.card.co. So it would be anything you choose here, .card.co. And that's going to be how they access your website on the internet. The other option that we have available to us here is this save as an offline draft. And this is just in case, let's say you weren't fully done with your site, you didn't like how it was yet, but you just wanted to close this out and come back to it later. Saving it as an offline draft just saves it to your account so you can come back and edit it later without actually publishing it to the internet for people to view. But for this class, let's just publish to this .card.co URL. One other option, if you were interested in spending money and you owned a domain, was publishing to a custom domain, but we're not going to get into that right now, as that's, can get more complicated. So I'll choose sclibrarydemo.card.co and just click on this publish button, and it'll do its thing for a couple of seconds. And then here we go. So it says we successfully published this website, and here's the URL. So we can click on this button to view the site. And what we see here is exactly what we just designed. So we have web design class. There's just the placeholder text that we didn't get around to changing. Here's this image that we uploaded, and then the button that has the link to the library homepage. You'll notice that if we click this button, just as we expect, here we go. It takes us to the homepage, to the URL that we put into the button. So we'll just go back here. We scroll down, we see we have these images here. We have this bottom section. And then one thing to note about using the free tier for card is that it will add a tiny little watermark down at the bottom. So a little button that people can see it was made with that service. But other than that, this is going to be a completely free way to host your own website using these nice templates they have, and you design it through this whole interface. And if at any point you wanted to make changes to it, let's say this description here, you ready to type something there, and you just press done, that updates it, and you press save and go back to the publish button in the top right. And here you see we have all of these options still the same, but we can choose to publish changes now. And again, that'll take a couple of seconds. And if we switch back to this class, or to this to the site that's published directly and refresh the page, we see that those changes have been updated. So, if you were to publish your site and then later want to make changes, just know that at any point you can come back to this screen, make any changes you want, and then that'll be immediately reflected to viewers who view your site. So that was Card. It's a great tool to create a website. It's a very simple and clean interface, in my opinion. And it's really good for designing a simple site like this, usually one page, just some text and images, a couple of buttons that go places. People often use it as like a place to put some information about yourself, maybe a bio, or if you have a bunch of different social media links, people will often share a card website just to have buttons to each of their different social medias all in one place. So things like that is sort of what card is good for. Another site though is called Wix. So this is, a different website for creating websites, but it's designed more for maybe a small business or something like that. Or if you want like a personal blog that has a bunch of different pages with different posts on them, that's what Wix is good at. It has tools to create more complex sites. It even has some like e-commerce stuff if you wanted to set up a storefront. But it also has a pretty cool feature where you can use an AI assistant to help you design the site. So we're going to be walking you through that. To start, after you sign in and you create your account, you'll be here in this sites menu. Right now we don't have any, but we'll create a new site by clicking on this Create New Site button in the top right. And what this will do is, it asks us if we want to set it up without AI. So that'll be like choosing a template, this similar way to how we did it on Card, where we picked one of them out of the list. Or we can start chat to use this AI assistant to kind of design a site for us. Okay, so it's asking us what we want to call the site. Maybe for this one, I'll do a landscape photography page where, if I was a landscape photographer, let's say I want to show off my photography, and I also want to, make prints available for people to buy. So I can just say, I want to call it landscape photography. And then this AI assistant is just going to walk us through a couple of different steps, asking us questions, you know, like what specific features or functionality. So I'll say to show my photos and sell prints of them. And as we go through this process, it's going to do some back and forth to ask us what sort of features we want. And on the right side, it'll update the information that it has about our site. And it's asking target audience. And this case, let's say I don't really have a good answer for this. Like I just want to show my photography to anyone. You can choose to skip the question at the bottom because this one doesn't really seem super relevant. So I'll just skip the question and it'll come right around and ask us another one. See, and it's asking us if we have anything else. And it seems like it's getting into some stuff that I don't really care about. So what we can do is say, instead of continuing this back and forth, I'll just say end chat and continue. It's this button below the text box at the bottom. And once we click here, it'll go through and it'll take a couple of minutes just to generate our site. Okay, so it's going to dump us here. And something that Wix kind of wants you to do because it's more meant for a business and businesses will typically have their own domain. It's going to ask you to go through all of that stuff. But because we're trying to keep it simple right now, you don't need to do that. And you can publish under a subdomain that Wix owns, similar to how you did it with Card, which is a lot easier. So we'll just skip this and we'll go straight to design site in the top right. So, and then we can let Wix create a site for us. That's going to be the AI assistant that we just did. So I'll click this and then it'll just go through its thing and work on generating that site. Okay. And then since this takes a few minutes, I think we might have some time for some questions and answers.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm helping out John tonight with the class, and I'm going to read him your questions as you put them in. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. Just type them in, and we will answer them during pauses like this in the program. So I just see one right now. And the question is, what is the difference between publishing, in this case, to Card, in the last example you gave, versus publishing to your own domain?
Yeah, so what a subdomain means is if we go back to the Card website that we just published, If you look up in the URL, it might be a little bit small, but what it says is it's sclibrarydemo.card.co. And a subdomain just means the SC library demo part of this. And no matter what you choose, it's always going to end with .card.co. But a custom domain, like an actual domain, would be if you wanted to have it at, let's say you owned the website, yourwebsite.com, you would just choose, or you would be able to publish this exact same thing under http://yourwebsite.com. And the difference between setting that up in Card versus um, just choosing their own one is going to be first, as we see, publish to a custom domain is locked. And if we click here, it wants us to try their pro service. So that's obviously going to cost money. Um, but once you do that, if you were to look into that, you would then be able to choose the publish to a custom domain checkbox here. And then, it would walk you through the steps of setting up your domain. It's going to involve some like DNS stuff. And of course, you would need to own the domain first, which is something that you do through a domain registrar. So that it's not too complicated, but it does have a few more steps to it. And just a little bit out of scope to walk through step by step how you do it for this class. But of course, Card makes it pretty simple once you were to pay for the paid tier if that's something you're interested in. Um, and then yeah, that's how you would publish it to an actual domain instead of the subdomain under Card. Although functionality wise, it's exactly the same. It's just a little bit less pretty to have it under the subdomain like this.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Our next question is, does Wix have a free tier?
Yeah. So all of the services we're going to be going over today, we're just going to be looking at what the free tier offers, and Wix, as well as Card, and a little bit later we're going to be looking at Google Sites. All of the features that we're going to be going over are going to be the stuff that's available on the free tier.
Excellent. And the last question that I see right now is, do professional web developers also use these platforms for the jobs that they do?
Yeah, so it really depends. Web developers that are, let's say their entire job is to create websites. Oftentimes they'll use coding tools. There are some frameworks that make building websites, um, you know, pretty pretty easy, and it's a lot more powerful to use the code if that's something that you know. But a lot of businesses will opt not to have a team of professional web developers design a site for them, and they will use a service just like this. Maybe not Card or Google Sites as we'll see later, because those are a bit more geared towards individuals. But stuff like Wix and some other services will provide, a codeless interface to create a website. And a lot of companies and services will use these sorts of tools instead of having web developers create their own websites for them.
All right, thanks, John. We have a couple more questions. It looks like the Wix page is ready to go. Do you want to keep doing Q&A or save them for a little later?
I think we could do one more question and then we'll jump back into Wix and cover that.
Okay, so we'll do one more. I see that there are a few more coming in the queue. We will get to them just a little bit later in the show. So last question for now, is this similar to WordPress pages?
Yeah. So WordPress is another service that you can use to design a website and host it online without needing to know any of the coding yourself. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there are any free WordPress services that are going to be, as feature rich as some of the ones that we're covering today. It might be more like a free trial or something, but the concept is very similar to how you build and design these web pages, whether it's WordPress or whether it's any of the ones that we're covering today. All right. So here we go. We're back in Wix, and you see, as we've been talking, it's gone through and it's generated us a site. On the left side here, it gives us a bit of a site brief. However, this AI chat for Wix is a little bit buggy now, so some of the information here isn't exactly accurate. Like you see, it tries to talk about the site structure, which includes one page. But as I said, Wix is geared more towards, a more complex website that has a couple of different features. And we'll see later that this actually has a couple of different pages. And on the right side, it gives us a preview of the template that it's generated just for us. And you see it has different sections for different sorts of information I'd want. It has contact information at the bottom, a little about section, some photography session options here, and then just some example pictures that it pulled just so that way it could fill the template. And if we didn't like this, we could try to regenerate the site and roll a new one to see if we liked that one better. But let's say that I'm okay with this. I'll say yes, continue with this design. And again, it's going to ask us if we want to set up a domain, but we can just skip that and say continue to the editor. Okay. And then here it's just going to be setting up the different sections of websites that Wix supports. And if you were to try and use Wix, you don't need to set up all of these. I'll walk you through how you can add or remove various sections depending on what you actually want. But if you were going to try and make a website that was a little bit broader in scope than just the one page sort of about portfolio kind of website that I showed with Card, maybe some of the different sections in Wix would be interesting to you. So we'll just go through, and once it finishes loading, we'll walk you through that. Okay. Looks like it's almost done. Yep. So, like I mentioned, Wix is going to try and generate a website that has a couple of different pages. So you see up at the top, we have, portfolio. It has an option to book online. It has a shop, a contact page. It's kind of a lot. So we'll go through that and see how much of that we want to keep or how much we want to remove later. But for now, we're in the, just the products one. If I want to go back to that home page, in the top left, it allows us to choose which page that we're on. We click here, we see um, a list of all the different page types. And, there's kind of a lot, but we'll go through and show how we can trim that down if we don't need all of these later. But I'll just, for now, go to this portfolio page, which should be the one that it gave a preview of earlier. And yep, we have this here, one section just to introduce it. We have other sections for like, in this case, um, because this is a photography website that I tried to generate some photos here, some services. And just like the other ones, we can delete different sections if we want. So actually, I'll show you how to do that later. We can add specific elements. That's going to be along the left side. We have a bunch of different menus here. And similar to Card, it's going to be the plus button as you'd expect to add an element. And it gives us a list of different element types that we can choose from. So, there's some like social media links, there's videos, there's even forms that you can have set up, but we're going to keep it simple for now. I'll just show you, you can add some text. So in this case, we want to add a paragraph, and then we can just drag it around the same way we did in Card. And we can add any text we want, and it'll just put it there on the web page. So we can just, keep that there for now. If this was your own web page, you'd obviously want to spend a little bit more time making it exactly how you want it. But yeah, we can do that. We can come through and edit some various things. Like say I don't really like this catch line it generated for us and I want to keep it simple. Just you can put down my photos and that'll update that little text there. And you can go through, I'm just double clicking to select it, and then you can type whatever you want. Yep, so you can just go through that, editing things how you want. However, we see that there's a bunch of different sections here, and not all of these images are going to be just like pasted in the same way it was in Card. It's actually pulling from a different page. And, we can look at that now. Um, so if we go to manage pages, here it shows you the different options it generated. And because this is an AI thing and it's going to do, something that's personalized to you, it generates something different every time. This website is a bit more complicated than some of the other ones I've seen. So, we have a bunch of different stuff. But, if you wanted to keep it simple, you didn't want any of this fancy, bookings pages and stuff. After we go to this manage pages and site menu, we can select any category we want, like this bookings pages, and then we can just delete that. And it's going to ask us to confirm. And we'll see that now we don't have any bookings here, and we can just edit the section and delete it. Yeah, so it just deleted automatically. So that's just a very brief overview of Wix. As I'm sure you noticed, this is a lot more feature rich, but with that comes with a lot more complexity with designing the website. If this is something that interests you though, like if you don't want a website just for yourself, if you do have a small business or something that you want these more feature rich multi-page websites to support, then looking into Wix and exploring the various offerings that it has would be good. They have a help here, and they have like an editor help center, and that, as it says here, it's going to have like a step-by-step help for how you can do different things. So if you have an idea for what you want for your site, uh, Wix might be an option, and you can look through these various articles that you have here in order to try and understand how you can set up the website that you want to build. But with that said, let's say you did do all of that and you're familiar with, or you're happy with how you get your website set up. What you can do then is just come to the upper right corner and click on the publish button. And you see, it was just a one-click thing and it published the site. In this case, it published it to, a subdomain, so it wasn't one that we had to choose. And this is just what happens on the free version. But we can click on this, click on view site, and that'll take us right there. And here we go. So we have the website here. We have the custom, title that I put there. And we have all of the different sections that we saw. And, like we said, this has different pages, so you can click around and set things up. And you can go through and, if this was something that you were actually deploying, you would set it up however you want in the Wix interface beforehand. And then just one thing to note with the free tier of Wix is that unlike having just a tiny little unobtrusive watermark like how Card did, Wix is going to insert a full banner at the top of your screen, just saying that the site was designed with the Wix website builder, and then they'll have a link back to Wix, and anyone who views your website is going to see that. But, with that one caveat in mind, Wix is also an option to generate a website that has a lot more features than Card and host it for free. Okay. So, that was Wix. Might be a bit overwhelming for you. If that's the case, though, don't worry. We're going to take it much simpler again with our third option. This is going to be Google Sites, and it's much more similar to Card, where it's aimed at generating a simple, straightforward site, has an uncomplicated interface, and it's good for just, an individual setting up maybe an about page, or if you have a project that you want to talk about online and make a website for. Google Sites is great for that. So we can, again, choose a template. So we can click on this template gallery button to view all of them. And we see there's a couple of different options here. But the thing about Google Sites is it doesn't have quite as many templates to choose from as Card did, and it certainly doesn't have like an AI template generator like Wix. But what it does have is just a good interface for tweaking anything you want about any of the elements. So if you're like very detail oriented and you want to have your website looking exactly the way you want, Google Sites could be a good option. So I'll still just go through and choose a template that I like. You know, this portfolio one is looking good, so I'll click here. And then here we go. We have the template here with just a bunch of placeholders that we can fill out. And again, when you hover over elements, it'll highlight what element you're about to select. And you can just click on, text, for example, to edit it. So I'll just, we can delete this. And I have some puppy pictures. So let's say this is a site for our puppy. And we can edit the text like there, just the way we did with the previous ones. And with this image, we can replace it by first clicking on it to select and then going to the three dots up here. And then we can choose to replace the image by uploading a new one. So I'll choose that one right there. And then we can replace the image like that. Then of course, we can also add new elements, like I said. So that's going to be this right-hand panel right here. So there's a bunch of different element types you can choose from, but the most common ones are probably going to be right at the top. We have text here and we have images. So we can just click on text box and we see that inserts a new text box right here. We can just type whatever we want. And once you've filled that out, we can, again, like all the previous ones, you can just drag and drop to place it somewhere else. So if I want it to be up here, I can drag until I see the blue line highlighting where the element is going to go, and I'll just let go. And we see that that element was inserted right there. And then after you have the element placed and you type text, or even, before you get all of that figured out, you can do other things like say change the font size to make it a little bit bigger. You can change the font itself or make it bold, however you want to do it. That's what this banner is here for. And then you can just go through filling out each of the sections, adding text as you see fit. There's like an option to get in touch with an email address. So this is just going to be instructing your site viewers to contact you if that's something you wanted. But then we also have these panels in the middle. And you see there's various different icons in the middle instructing you what sort of stuff you could put there. So because this is Google Sites, it's going to have good integration with other Google services. So it can do things instead of just a straight image, it can say link a YouTube video, which is what these ones are here, or you could link a Google slideshow just directly from the slideshow without needing to fiddle with exporting it or anything like that. If that's something that interests you, you can also do stuff like Google Docs to insert a whole entire document into your web page. You can use that. So I'll show you here, like let's say I wanted to insert a presentation. I have just some previous ones from other classes. So let's say I wanted to insert that one right here. You would just select it. And now we see we have this presentation embedded into the website. There are other ones like this middle one. The template automatically generates this as just taking an image. So just like we saw up here, you can click on the image and then choose to upload. And we can upload an image there. And for this third one, this one, the template automatically generated it as a YouTube link. But, let's say we didn't want to embed a YouTube video. Let's say we wanted just another picture. We can always change that. So just by clicking in the gray area, just the blank area inside this element instead of directly on the button, we can select it and then we'll get this gear icon in the top. So you'll just click that gear and here it allows you to change the file type. So instead of it being a YouTube video, I can just change this one back to an image. I'll just click on update. And now we see that this isn't a YouTube icon anymore. It's just an image. So we can upload another image there. And then if at any point the image didn't size itself exactly how you wanted, like it's cropped wrong or doesn't include all of the content, what you can do is with the image selected, now you see we have different options up here. And we can just go to the crop button right here. And it'll allow us to drag it around or change the scale however we want. So we can, scale it something like that. And when we get it the way that we like, we'll just click on the check and it updates the image accordingly. And then again, let's say this template generates a little bit too much information and you don't want to fill out everything. You can, just like the previous ones, you can delete sections. So on Google Sites, to delete a specific element, like let's say just this one right here, I wanted to get rid of. Pretty simple. You just click on it and there's a trash can button here at the top. To click on that, that gets rid of the element. Or if, let's say, this entire highlighted section isn't something that you want and you want just the entire thing gotten rid of, there's a trash can icon on the very left side, and that'll also delete the section. So you can just go through, you can play around with it, fill out anything you want. You can, add new text boxes, add new images, or if you want to play around with adding stuff like a YouTube video or, maybe embedding something like Google Maps into this, if there's, a physical address you wanted to show your viewers, you can do all of that from this right-hand insert panel. But I mentioned that this was sort of like an in-between of Wix and Card. So it does support multiple pages. It's much simpler than Wix, but you do have up at the top, you see a little navigation bar. We also have an about page here where, it automatically generates a template that has some, work experience if that's something you cared about, but you could always just delete that and replace it with any information you wanted about yourself. And then we have a third page that this template decides to be like a project page to show various projects that you've worked on or something. So those are the three it generates, but you can always change that in case, let's say you didn't want this project page as part of your website. Instead of working with the insert menu on the right side here, we see there's different tabs. So we'll click on the Pages tab this time, and you see we have the same pages up here as we do in the list. And if we wanted to delete this project page, we would just go to the three dots next to it, choose delete, and now you see we only have the two pages up here. So it's just gotten rid of the projects page, so we don't have to worry about filling it out or including it on our website. Going the other way though, if in case you wanted to add a new page that wasn't already included in the template, after you go to the Pages tab here, it's just going to be clicking on the plus here, and then you'll just click on New Page, and that'll insert a new one in the list and put a link to it in your navigation bar. And then the last panel in this right sidebar is the Themes panel. So this is some pretty simple themes that you can add just to add a bit of, visual flavor to your site however you like it. First thing you can do is after you select a theme is just change a color, and that's pretty subtle. I don't know how well it's going to carry over on Zoom, but this is just changing the color of the like headings and titles to this like, slightly tinted however you want. Or you can choose different themes entirely, and that'll change the fonts that it's using and the colors. So you can, slightly tweak it around. Nothing too drastic though, but it'll give it a little bit of extra visual style, however you like. For now, I'll just keep it on simple. And, for your site, you would go through and just fill out everything, get it how you wanted. But let's say you've done that, you like how the site looks and you're ready to publish it. That'll be, again, just like the previous ones, the previous services we looked at. It's the publish button in the top right. And it opens up this page here. And the way that Google Sites works is, again, it allows you to do it for free. So like if I wanted to publish this under SC Library, look like that's taken. So SC Library demo. And the URL is like a little bit different. So it's going to be sites.google.com/ and then it's going to have the path here that includes what you choose. But this is the completely free option. It'll handle everything for you. And you'll just click on publish and it'll give you a link to it once it's done publishing. But the cool thing about Google Sites is it also allows you to use a custom domain, and this is free. So like I said, we're not going to go into how you do this because you would need to like buy a domain and set up the DNS, which is just a couple more steps to do, and not something we have time for. But if you do own a custom domain and you wanted to publish your site to that, you can do that here without needing to pay Google any extra money to do that. But for this class, like I said, we're going to keep it simple, use the provided URL for it. And all we have to do is click publish here. It'll take a second, and it has just published the site. So we can go back into the drop down that's next to the publish button here, and we can click on view published site. And we see our website, just like we had it. So we have this title that we added here. There's the image that we selected. Come through here, we have the two images and even the embedded Google Slides slideshow here, which obviously isn't relevant to being a puppy, but I just wanted to give you an example of how you can integrate Google Sites with other Google services in case this was something that you wanted to do with your website. And, we have our different pages here. So there's just the default about page, but obviously you would fill that out on your own. And just like that, you've published a site with Google Sites in this case. So those are the three services that we're going to look at today. We started off with Card, which was a pretty simple and straightforward with an easy to use interface service to build mostly like a single page website that's just going to have some text, some images, maybe some buttons with links to other pages or social media accounts, something like that. We looked at Wix, just gave a very brief overview of some of the stuff that it offers. That's going to be more feature rich and better for designing a larger website, maybe for a small business or something like that that needs the different pages and different posts and different services to be all displayed separately. And then here we have Google Sites, which is much more similar to Card, allows you to just freely publish a simple website that has one, or as we see here, just a couple of simple pages. Yeah, I hope you learned something. I know this was a pretty quick overview, so please, if you have any questions, type out your question in the Q&A feature and we'll start answering those.
All right, we do have a few questions ready to go. I'm going to start with one that is specifically about Google Sites because that's where you are right now. Someone is wondering, does Google Sites watermark your site the way that Card or Wix did?
Yeah, so it's if it is anything, I don't believe it does watermark it at all, in like an explicit watermark way. There is this little I button in the corner, where it shows you just some basic information about it, and you see there is a link to Google Sites here if someone were to go look at that. But it also is just, the information on when the site was last updated. But aside from somebody coming down and clicking this tiny unobtrusive eye icon and seeing that it has a link to Google Sites here, there's no watermark or banner or anything that Google Sites is going to give you.
Perfect. Another question. Do any of these sites support receiving comments or questions?
Yeah, so um, Google Sites, like I said, it has integration with various Google services that I believe includes Google Forms. Yeah, right here. So you could set up a Google Forms and then embed that as an element into your website. So obviously I don't have any here to choose to show you, but if you were to set up a Google form and then put it into your website, then your website viewers could access that just straight from your website. And then Wix also has that option. Let me just close this. If we go to the Pages menu, I think it's actually in the, let's see, the like sections. You can have a form section where, viewers can send you some, let me see if it'll add it here. Yeah, I think yeah. So you can add a forms section where people can, actually, this is just to sign up with an email. So that's a little bit different, but there is one of these sections here that allows viewers of your site to send back messages to you. And, setting that up is something you'll have to do with, setting up your different pages and things to make it all work correctly. So I would recommend going to the Wix website and looking in more detail about how that works, but that is also something you can do with Wix. With Card, though, it keeps things simple. It doesn't have a built-in way to do it, but you could always do, adding a button that's like a link to something like a Google form, and that would be the best way to do it um, through Card.
Excellent. Next question, are there other free sites other than the ones mentioned? And do you have any recommendations beyond the three that we covered today?
Yeah, there are definitely other sites. Many of them are going to have like limited free tiers. Um, off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with any that will have like a full feature free forever tier that would be something you might want to use. But like someone mentioned earlier, there's WordPress, which is a good, usually paid service to publish sites. So for as far as free sites go, it's kind of hard to beat Google Sites and Card specifically for like simple free website building.
Excellent. This next one, it might be outside of the scope of our class, but someone's wondering how hard is it to set up the shop feature on Wix as opposed to selling on Etsy?
Okay, so yeah, a little bit more complicated. I haven't personally set up the shop feature, so I don't know exactly how complicated it is. I did look at sort of the steps involved in setting it up, and I think Etsy is still going to be a simpler way to do it if that's something you wanted to do, because it's just a simple user-facing interface designed just to buy and sell things, or if you're setting up a shop just to sell things. With Wix, you're going to need to worry about integrating it into the web page and, setting up the different sub pages that users are going to navigate to buy stuff, as well as doing all of the like payment setup and things. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated, a few more steps involved. They do try and make it as easy as possible, but I would still assume that selling on Etsy is going to be easier and more straightforward.
And I'll just add, nothing precludes you from making your website on Wix and then also setting an Etsy shop up and just linking the two together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another option.
Yeah. You could just add a link to your Etsy page.
Cool. All right. Next question. Can you edit using these services? Can you edit your site using HTML?
Um, Yeah, that's something that I haven't looked into to all of them. It's not something that's advertised or really encouraged, because a lot of the, UI tools for quickly highlighting and editing elements kind of assumes that the HTML and the CSS, like the code that makes up the website, is going to be the way it expects. Um, yeah, so it's not really something that you can do. Maybe some of these services offer it as an option, but yeah, usually it's not something that they encourage you to do. So most of the time you'll be better off trying to create what you want using the interface.
All right. Next question. Can you publish the page free using the free subdomain like on Card
Mhm.
initially and then later change it to a your own domain,
Yeah,
the paid version?
yeah, you can totally do that. If you want to just try out one of these services and then publish it later, that's something you can totally do. So if we go back to um, on Wix, for example, we just click on the icon and then go back to the main page. We've already published this to the um, free domain here, but we have this connect domain button that we could click on and then just go through, and it'll show us how we can set up the domain. Um, it's just asking us all the options. So you can just walk through this process and it'll move your site right over to the domain that you choose. And then with Card, for example, in this publish, assuming you had the paid version, you would just check this one instead of the top option. And then you'd go through the steps to connect your domain, and then you just publish your changes, and Card as well would just move your site right over to the new domain. And then same with Google Sites. You go to publish, and then once you have the domain, oh, looks like that was, yeah, it just bugged out. But uh the page that we saw when we were publishing, you could again just choose the domain, and yeah, looks like I'll have to figure out what error is going on. But assuming it works, you would just do it right there. So you can totally move it from the free tier to the custom domain.
Perfect. All right, we have time for one more question, I think, and the last two questions are the same, so that works out well. People are wondering, can you port the design you made on one service to a different one? For example, from Wix to Google.
Yeah, so that's where it kind of gets tricky. You'll have to make sure that you choose the right service at first because it's not possible to just directly move a site from Card to Wix, for example, or between any of these services. They each use their own, you know, way of setting things up. So you can't just like move something out of one service and put it into another. So if you were to switch services, you would have to remake your website from the ground up. So definitely important to make sure that you look at the options and choose which one you think is going to suit you best long term in order to pick a service to build your website with.
All right, thanks, John. That is it for our questions, so we can start wrapping up.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, once again, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you learned something about how you can set up a site and feel a little bit more confident in, services that are available to you and how you can get started with that. This was just one in a series of tech help classes that we offer, so be sure to check the library website for more um, classes in the future. We can do that just by going to sclibrary.org. And if you want to look at all of the events we have the calendar here. Or if you want to be notified of maybe future tech help classes or other events, in this little stay connected box in the corner, you can type in your email address and click subscribe, and then you can choose which services you want to be notified about as they are scheduled in the future. And again, if there's any questions that we weren't able to get to, or you have other questions later on, you can always come into the Technology Center, and there's going to be an attendant there who can help you out one-on-one with whatever it is you want to be doing. And finally, there's going to be a survey as soon as you exit the Zoom meeting. We would appreciate it if you fill that out. It'll help us, improve our programs and plan better ones in the future. And that's everything. So thank you for coming.